Hi everyone, I'm doing my research and my project on childhood sexual abuse and the lasting effects that it can cause. Child abuse includes any threatening or violent interaction of physical or sexual nature that may cause physical or psychological harm to a child. Sexual childhood abuse is any interaction between a child or an adult or other child in which the child is used for sexual stimulation of the perpetrator. Researchers have found that there are many consequences for children who are victims of sexual abuse. These consequences start in early childhood and follow many victims into adulthood. Children who are sexually abused not only go through physical pain and trauma, but emotional and psychological pain, and it is often long-lasting and very damaging to the victims. There are 460,000 sexual assaults in Canada every year. Out of every 1,000 sexual assaults, 33 are reported to police, 29 are recorded as a crime, 12 have charges laid, 6 are prosecuted, 3 lead to a conviction. 997 assailants walk free, with only 1 in 10 children telling somebody that they were sexually abused. This leaves a large number of children who don't tell anybody and have that knowledge of what happened to them bottled up inside, which then leads to many consequences throughout their life. Many sexually abused children will develop health issues such as respiratory difficulties, stomach pains, gastrointestinal problems, among many others. Psychological issues for children who are sexually abused include depression, eating disorders, insomnia, rage, hostility, obesity, poor self-esteem, post-traumatic stress, along with many others. As well, research has been done to show that children who have been sexually abused are more shy and anxious compared to their peers who were not abused. As well, victims of sexual assault are likely to have a hard time coping with stress. They have difficulties with problem solving, show so low self-esteem, have poor interpersonal skills, and find it hard to trust future partners. Of the sexual violent crimes reported to the police from 2005 to 2010, the survivors who reported these gave the following reasons for doing so. 28% to protect the household or victim from further crimes by the offender, 25% to stop the incident or prevent reoccurrence or escalation, 21% to improve police surveillance or they believed they had a duty to do so, 17% to catch, punish, or prevent offenders from reoffending, 6% gave a different answer or declined to give a reason, and 3% did so to get help or recover loss. Of the people who did not report, these are the reasons they gave for not reporting. 20% feared retaliation, 13% believed the police would not do anything to help, 13% believed it was a personal matter, 8% reported to a different official, 8% believed it was not important enough to report, 7% did not want to get the perpetrator in trouble, and 30% gave another reason or did not give a reason at all. Throughout my research, it is quite evident that children who are sexually abused as they move into adulthood have many psychological problems because of this abuse they endured as children. The following is a story of a girl who survived sexual assault as a child.
When I was 14, I was sexually assaulted in my school. I'd actually been on a lot of medications. I was pretty sick at the time, and I'd passed out in the school hallway. And a friend of a friend had seen me there. And when I woke up, it was very evident my bra strap was undone, part of my pants was undone, and the friend of my friend was still sitting there with me. And his response at the time was, strangely, it looks like your bra is undone. To me, that was peculiar, and I didn't know why he would say that. And then later, upon running into my friend and him reflecting and saying, I want you to stay close by, I don't want you to leave my sight for a little while, something started to register. I kind of connected the dots and was able to say, oh, okay, something isn't right here. So in the time between my assault and my decision to report it, there was a lot of confusion indeed, and there was a lot of hesitance about what the appropriate course of action really should be. My initial response was to just carry on, to have said nothing to anybody, to have consulted with my friend, but not to speak up very much. I did confide in another female friend at the time, and she reflected by saying, this sounds familiar. A friend of hers had gone through a similar experience with the same person who had assaulted me. At that point, I talked to the friend of the friend, and she said, in fact, that was the case, and she knew she wasn't alone because she had seen his behavior around others, reflecting similar habits and patterns that were extremely questionable and very inappropriate. I was convinced the right thing, in fact, to do was to talk with somebody I trusted, somebody who I could confide in, and that happened to be my math teacher at the school. And then I started the process of, going through court procedures. Charges were laid. They had to be laid once I spoke with an authority at the school. My mom was about the only real support I had at that time. A lot of friends didn't really know how to interact with me anymore. So after that, the court trial started, and that was challenging. I don't remember a lot of actually being in court. I think that's one of the things that kind of happened is my brain decided to sort of let go of a lot of what happened there. It was pretty traumatizing. I do remember at one point being asked a lot of very personal questions and things like, what were you wearing? Things like, did you do anything to provoke this? Those definitely came up. And unashamedly, too, they weren't the sort of questions that came up with, tact. At one point, I was asked in court, and this is the hardest thing that I remember happening, that I would have to look at and identify the perpetrator of assault. My abuser was in the courtroom, and I was asked to please identify him, at which point I had to look directly at him, point at him, say his name. That was the hardest part. My abuser was given a bit of a slap on the wrist with some community service, and that was kind of standard at the time. The court proceedings, they were not as accommodating as I was maybe led to believe. There was a lot of information about how friendly law enforcement would be, how they would kind of help you through and see you through. But the fact of the matter was that a lot of people within that system were not equipped with appropriate resources to handle not only any survivor, but a very young survivor. There was a lot of assumption that as a young person, I might not know what I was talking about, or that as a woman, I might have done something to have provoked an attack. So I guess I kind of came out of that feeling pretty disappointed, pretty let down. And after that, I continued to live my life as I did, slowly coming to the realization about 10 years later that I really needed support. I kind of decided, maybe what I should do is look into this a little bit further. Maybe I can be accountable to myself and really take some self-care steps and approach Sasha. And it was a really good choice. I think for survivors going through the court process, a very supportive and hopefully wise choice would be to, confide in a form of support that will best encourage you personally. If your needs are to speak with somebody, I would absolutely encourage them to phone Sasha or phone a crisis line. I would absolutely encourage them to do what they need to do in order to feel that they can best cope with the experiences that they're having through that system.
Thanks for watching, guys.